27. Thought as interface.
When the mind began to touch the machine, the prediction, what we thought. As computers grew more powerful and personal, a tantalizing idea emerged at the edge of futurism. We would eventually control machines directly with our minds. Keyboards, mice, and touchscreens would become temporary scaffolding. The true interface would bypass hands and voice altogether. Thoughts would be detected, interpreted, and translated into action. Communication would become faster, purer, and frictionless. In this future, intention itself would be input. Standing in 1999, this prediction felt radical, but internally consistent. If the brain generated electrical signals and machines could read electrical signals, then the connection seemed inevitable. The only remaining questions were precision and timing, why this prediction made sense in 1999. To understand why brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, felt plausible, you have to remember how mechanical computing still felt at the turn of the millennium. In 1999, interfaces were physical and indirect. Typing and clicking dominated interaction. Computers required translation of thought into action. Assistive technologies for paralysis were limited. At the same time, neuroscience was advancing rapidly. Brain imaging techniques were improving. Researchers could already measure neural activity associated with movement, vision, and intention. From that vantage point, BCIs looked like the logical endpoint of interface evolution. If technology kept getting closer to the brain, eventually it would cross the final gap. This belief resonated deeply with the millennium-era optimism that boundaries between human and machine were dissolving. Computers were becoming more human-like. Humans would become more augmented. The interface would disappear, not by fading into the environment, but by moving inside us. For younger readers today, it's important to emphasize how futuristic this still sounded. In 1999, even reliable voice control felt ambitious. Thought control belonged to the same imaginative space as teleportation. Not impossible, but distant. Who said it? And where? Among the most vocal proponents of this vision was Ray Kurzweil, who argued in The Age of Spiritual Machines, 1999, that direct brain-machine communication would emerge as computing and neuroscience converged. Kurzweil framed BCIs as part of a broader trajectory toward human-machine integration. As machines became more intelligent, interfaces would become more intimate. Ultimately, the distinction between user and system would blur. At the time, this was not dismissed as fantasy. Experimental BCIs already existed in research settings. The question was scale, reliability, and safety, not principle. What actually happened 2000 to 2025? Brain-computer interfaces advanced, but cautiously, unevenly, and under strict constraints. The early 2000s focused on medical applications. Researchers learned to decode neural signals well enough to allow paralyzed patients to move cursors, enable basic communication through thought, restore limited motor function via prosthetics. Progress was real, but slow. Signals were noisy. Surgery carried risk. Training took time. Results varied dramatically between individuals. By the 2010s and 2020s, the field matured. Implants became more precise. Non-invasive techniques improved. Machine learning enhanced signal interpretation. BCIs moved from proof of concept to early clinical utility. By 2025, some patients could type or control devices using neural signals. Brain-controlled prosthetics achieved limited dexterity. Research into memory, vision, and sensory augmentation expanded. And yet, BCIs remained specialized. They did not become consumer interfaces. Thought did not replace touch. The keyboard and screen endured. Brain-machine communication proved possible, but fragile, invasive, and context-specific. The future arrived, but only partially. Verdict. Status. In progress. Brain-computer interfaces exist and work in limited contexts, particularly in medical and research settings. However, they have not become general-purpose interfaces for everyday computing. The prediction captured the direction of change, but not its pace or constraints. Why it played out this way? The central challenge was signal complexity. The brain does not produce clean, discrete commands. Thoughts overlap, intentions blur. Neural activity is contextual, distributed, and constantly changing. Extracting reliable meaning without intrusion proved far harder than expected. There were also ethical and practical limits. Invasive implants raise serious concerns about risk, consent, and long-term impact. Non-invasive approaches trade safety for lower precision. Unlike software interfaces, BCIs interact with identity itself. That alone slows adoption. The future didn't reject mind-machine interfaces. It approached them carefully. What this prediction teaches us about the future. This case illustrates a crucial forecasting lesson. Interfaces that touch the self evolve more slowly than those that touch tools. When technology intersects directly with bodies and minds, progress is constrained by safety, ethics, and trust, not just engineering. The closer the interface gets to identity, the more cautious society becomes. In 1999, thought as interface symbolized frictionless control. In 2026, it represents a frontier. Open, promising, but deliberately slow-moving. The future delivered access. It did not deliver ubiquity. One-sentence takeaway. We learned to read thoughts well enough to help, but not well enough to replace how we interact with machines.